political accountability, and is there some tension between that and bringing people together? You know, Robert Mueller laid out a lot of evidence of possible obstruction of justice by President Trump. What would a Biden Justice Department do with that evidence?
What the Biden Justice Department will do is let the Department of Justice be the Department of Justice. Let them make the judgments of who should be prosecuted. They are not my lawyers. They're not my personal lawyers.
So you're not going to rule it in or rule it out?
I'm not going to rule in or out. I'm going to hire really first-rate prosecutors and people who understand the law, like Democrat and Republican administrations have had, and let them make the judgment. But turning this into a vehicle for as if it's your own law firm, you don't own that Justice Department. You pick the best people you can, and you hope that what they're going to do is they're going to enforce the law as they see it. But can you remember any Republican president going out there, or former Democratic president, go find that guy and prosecute him? Ever hear that? Or, by the way, I'm being sued because a woman's accusing me of rape. Represent me. Represent me. Personally represent me in the state of New York on my not allowing my tax returns. What's that all about?
It's been so long since we've had a president who didn't wield our intelligence community for his own personal benefit that I'd forgotten that it's supposed to operate independent of politics. Under Bill Barr, we've seen a Justice Department so beholden to Donald Trump that there's no longer a distinction between his own attorneys and the DOJ. Just weeks ago, Bill Barr opted to intervene on Trump's behalf for a defamation lawsuit, meaning that taxpayers are now paying to defend Donald Trump in a sexual assault case. Bill Barr helped block the release of Trump's tax returns. He threw out charges against Trump ally Michael Flynn after he pleaded guilty. He asked foreign governments to discredit the Mueller report. The list goes on and on. He hasn't been representing the United States, he's been representing Donald Trump. The fact is, if ever there was a person who the DOJ should investigate, it's Donald Trump. This is a guy who committed 10 instances of obstruction of justice, which were laid out in detail by Robert Mueller. He's extorted a foreign country for dirt on Joe Biden. He orchestrated a large-scale, top-down cover-up to hide his involvement. Trump's own DOJ charged Michael Cohen for a campaign finance violation that Donald Trump himself was a co-conspirator of, and they were successful in locking him up. The New York Times has laid out a massive potential tax fraud scheme. The president is a walking indictment. And yet the fact that Biden still opted to allow them to defer to their own judgment goes to show that this is someone who actually respects this country's institutions as opposed to weaponizing them to help himself politically. And that's what the American people want. They're tired of watching a wannabe despot pilfer every corner of the US government for his own benefit. Joe Biden is the absolute antithesis of that. He's an avowed institutionalist. So much of his campaign is predicated on protecting those very institutions that Trump has so brazenly co-opted during the last 4 years. Biden doesn't want them to work for him, he wants them to work for us. And that, in a nutshell, is the difference. And Biden's answer here was indicative of a broader message. He's running to represent the vast majority of the people in this country. Not just the wealthy, not just white people, not just those in his political party or who come from states that voted for him. He's been clear in his promise to be a president for everyone. And the reason that message has resonated so well is because it comes in direct contrast to Trump's. Trump has predicated his presidency on dividing people. He figures that as long as we're good and scared of immigrants, of black people, of protesters, of Mexicans, of Democrats, of progressives, as long as everyone's attention is trained elsewhere, then no one will notice his failures. He relies on division not just as a cultural wedge issue, but as an entire strategy in office. But Americans can see through it, and they're tired of it. The last 4 years have been a nonstop barrage of hatred, vitriol, bullying. He's pandered to the wealthiest individuals and corporations. He's alienated our allies and coddled dictators, emboldened white nationalists, and punched down on immigrants and LGBT Americans. He's broken the law and destroyed our institutions. And he let a pandemic rage to help himself, leaving 215,000 Americans dead and counting. It's time for this national nightmare to end. Joe Biden has shown both at this town hall and in countless appearances before that he's prepared to lead this country. He has a plan to address the pandemic devastating families and jobs in the economy. He has a plan to address the existential threat of climate change, of racial injustice and police brutality, of healthcare, of criminal justice reform, and so much more. It's time to take this country back, and it starts with electing Joe Biden to office. If you like this video, please check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I take a deep dive into the week's most important stories and interview major players in politics, including Kamala Harris, Katie Porter, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Eric Swalwell, Mary Trump, Al Franken, Cory Booker, and many, many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.